Big Tent Mother's Day, a day to celebrate the real feelings and all their complexities that we have for our mothers and that mothers have for their children. Or it's a time to remember and celebrate all the many kinds of nurturing that fill our world with love, no matter by whom it is done. And this year, unfortunately, this is also a day to remind ourselves that the inherent worth and dignity of women requires them to have the right, which the rest of us take utterly for granted, to decide when and how and whether to give the gift of their bodies to save another life. It's a complicated day. But in this church, we tackle complex days because we honor life and our lives as they really are. We don't censor church any more than we censor books. Mothering, both the biological act of bearing a child and the years-long life commitment to raising a child, is hugely important. We human beings are so constructed that without at least a good dose of that kind of care from somebody, we will probably shrivel up and die. Certainly, if not physically, then emotionally. When it comes to human beings, Mother Nature depends on human mothering in the biggest possible way. The rewards of being a good enough mother and the benefits of having had a good enough mother can't be overestimated. But all that nurturing that we need to become human can't just come only from our mothers. Sometimes none of it can come that way. And so evolution has selected for and perhaps even crafted multiple avenues for humans to receive enough love and nurture to be healthy and strong. It's not possible for any woman to give that much, and it's probably not good for children to only have one person who loves them. So how do we manage? Scientists ask why humans have evolved to live so long beyond their fertile years, when they become useless to the ongoing march of evolution. A 69-year-old is no longer reproducing her genes, but her grandchild is. And it appears that children who have living grandparents are more likely to thrive and reproduce themselves. It's the need for nurture and the interest that grandparents so often have in their grandchildren, which gives human beings their long lives. There's also a theory that aunties and uncles without biological children also have more fit nieces and nephews, and therefore homosexuality is also favored by natural selection. And children whose fathers were a part of their nurturing, also more likely to survive and reproduce. And that's how attentive fatherhood became molded into the human picture. So, yay moms, and yay nurturing dads who get their day next month. But here's the real shout out for all the people of the village that made each and every single one of us. Our Grammies and our aunties, the church friends who took us to the basketball games our own father couldn't tolerate, neighbors who watched us after school, the caring people in the nursery and the daycare, and the Sunday school teachers who taught us that there was love and nurture outside of our family circle. And yay for the teachers and coaches and friends' parents who co-parented our adolescents during those years when our hormones and our independence needs were making it hard for us to appreciate our own parents. And yay for the managers and college teachers and dorm parents and sergeants who molded our young adulthood. We would none of us be who we are by ourselves alone, or even by our mothers alone. But that doesn't make it a simple day, even for those whose lives have been filled with motherly love of all kinds. For lots of people, their mother and mothering was problematic, erratic, unwise, even abusive. And that's a big hurt. And many of those who feel completely blessed by their mothers are grieving their deaths, making Mother's Day bittersweet. As babies and young children, we needed a nearly infinite amount of nurturing. That makes our feelings about our mother who couldn't give us that complex, and our knowledge about our own mothering ambivalent. Nor is mothering all that it's cracked up to be in the Hallmark section. The experience of loss is always a part of mothering, even when it goes well. Children grow up, abandon their childhood needs, and go off to make new friends and have new adventures. That's what we wanted. And sometimes mothering is very hard, thankless, painful. And some mothers are also grieving their children's deaths, their children's absence, their children's choices. Mother's Day is way too often sentimental. Sentimental does not honor real love because sentimental is only about the pretty parts, the easy stuff, and the authorized parties. Real love is much bigger, much deeper, much more complicated, and much harder than that. In this church, we're on the side of real love, the kind of love that means letting go, the kind of love that means real sacrifice, the kind of love that means facing change. Love that gives life and then nurtures it, and not just in our families or tribes or cozy communities, but in our complex societies, our divided nation, a world full of people who are and always will be different from us and somewhat mysterious to us. What we celebrate on Mother's Day is not so much small children at the knees of a smiling mother, though of course that's a beautiful picture. It's just not big enough or real enough. The love of Mother's Day is the love of calming a child's tantrum in the parking lot of the grocery store, of doing your mom's finances while yours remain undone, of seeing your teen off to a college you wish he hadn't chosen, or planning a memorial service when your heart is broken. The love of Mother's Day is correcting spelling tests, nursing your sick spouse, counseling a troubled teenager, helping a child learn to read. And since the love we learn from our mothers or whomever nurtured us is expended not just on children or even other people, but on the world, real love is also taking your dying pet to the vet one last time, guiding a church board or a neighborhood association or a professional group in the ways of democracy and justice, changing your ideas about categories that seem fundamental to you, like gender and race, because love does not oppress. And because love does not oppress, we have to, this Mother's Day, look into the face of abortion and what the likely future lack of access for many women in this country really means. Now, a very large proportion of this nation, about 70%, supports the right to abortion, at least early in pregnancy. So we're talking a hefty proportion of conservatives, as well as most political liberals. But our democracy is fractured so much that it seems likely that a minority will be going forward with their long campaign to end this right. This week's news shows us they're likely to get a huge victory in a month or so, when the carefully crafted Roe v. Wade, that attempt to balance the rights of liberty and life that clash when there's an unwanted pregnancy, will be overturned in favor of states' rights. Now, I realize that most of you listening this morning are very much a part of that 70%, but you might be having a hard time making the case for abortion rights. Frankly, the fact that the abortion rights side has failed in this crucial task of providing a powerful explanation of why they think abortion must remain legal. That very slogan, pro-choice, shows up that failure. Choice, after all, is how you deal with two flavors of ice cream or two possible outfits to wear. We need to make a stronger case with words that are equivalent to murder. Because the motherhood we've just celebrated as a gift of love and life will soon be made mandatory for women who are unwillingly pregnant in half the states of the United States. And make no mistake, unplanned pregnancy can happen to any fertile woman. There are no methods of birth control that do not leave a woman with a significant chance of an unplanned pregnancy over 30 years of fertility. And no woman is immune from rape, an event experienced by 20% of women during our lives. Laying aside the issue of who will care for the child after it's born, and how totally unrealistic is the notion that a woman who didn't plan to take on raising a child for 18 years can go through a pregnancy and just give the baby up for adoption, a claim which flies square in the face of both social and biological reality. Let's just talk about the forced pregnancy part. Pregnancy is a 9-month-long body donation, complete with risks, pain, exceedingly intrusive medical care, and common lifelong consequences. Many pregnant women lose their jobs, even though pregnancy discrimination is illegal, or must give up their livelihoods for some months. So they face economic consequences as well. Pregnancy results in the gift of life. Pregnancy is the gift of life. And for many who undergo it, it is the gift of the deepest and most profound love they will ever experience. We celebrate that gift and its givers on Mother's Day. But requiring a woman to undergo this when they are unwilling to is to institute a form of involuntary servitude in this nation. A situation in which one class of people is required by law to support in their very bodies a life they did not invite and do not want. It would give to the fetus a right which no born human being has, the right to sustain its life by appropriating somebody else's body. After all, if you or I needed, say, a life-saving tissue transplant, we can't demand it of another person just because we will die unless we get it. We can only get such a life-saving donation as a freely given gift. What makes a fetus so special? Nobody has ever answered that question because it has never been asked. Nor has forcing a woman to live with an unwanted fetus growing in her body often been called what it is, which is a form of slavery. Now, I know you don't like that word. And while it's true that this form of slavery is much more benign than forced labor in cotton fields or a lifetime of servitude and watching your children sold out from under you, anytime a person is forced to give up significant freedoms, resources, and choices about their lives to serve another person without any compensation, that's the definition of slavery. And slavery is never acceptable. The right to life, which humans enjoy, is not an absolute right. The right to life exists in balance with other rights seen as critical to our humanity. For instance, in many of the places now enacting anti-abortion legislation, a man can legally kill an intruder into his house because his right to ownership and safety trumps the intruder's right to life. Although legally mandated organ donation would save thousands of lives per year in this nation, it would be rightfully seen as the most egregious possible intrusion on the unwilling donor's most basic human rights to self-determination. When freedom and life clash, compromise is necessary. Roe v. Wade, probably now of blessed memory, laid out a compromise. Unwillingly pregnant women had the right to decide whether or not to support that fetus, but only for a few months. Older fetuses do have the right to life, and then only very serious concerns about their health or the mother's health would permit late abortions. When a woman gives the fetus a gift of her body in a pregnancy, that is worthy of every celebration. Legally coerced pregnancy is involuntary servitude. It threatens the very personhood of women, and it degrades us all. Deep breath. Let's take that deep breath. Let it lead us into a space where we can honor the beauty and messy truths of our lives right now, on this Mother's Day, and be with each other in the complexity of this moment. Let's keep breathing together. Make some space for the experiences that bless us and break our hearts. Let's take a moment to remember our own mothers, the one who gave us birth or who chose and nurtured us as children. Let us breathe into our thanksgiving for their lives and their gifts. And if your mother was overwhelmed or unprepared or abusive or foolish, leaving you hurt or on your own, we see you. We give thanks that someone was there for you, nurturing you to adulthood. And if you are mourning your mother as estranged or deceased, we bow to you. And if your much loved mother is with you, we smile for you. If you wished for a child and never had one, if you were forced to bear a child and mother it as best you could, we see you too. And if your loved and wanted children are the joys of your life, we rejoice with you. If you have declined motherhood by abortion or other choices about the use of your life and body, we honor those choices. We honor the ways you have found to nurture the world. If you're wondering whether your mothering was enough, you are not alone. If you are mourning a child deceased or estranged, we see you. If you mothered other mothers' children as a teacher or a therapist or an auntie or a grandma, a coach or a neighbor, we honor you, whatever your gender. And if yours is a different truth altogether, we honor your unspoken story. This is a room for all in this circle, and for all the ways that our lives have made us who we are. So if your motherhood is expended on your bees, your garden, the neighborhood park which you quietly patrol for party trash and dog poop, happy Mother's Day, and thank you from all of us. And if your motherhood is expended on letters to the editor, calls to Congress, rallies with clever signs, knocking on doors for the candidates who will make this a better society, happy Mother's Day to you too. And if right now, a lot of your mothering energy is being spent on your parents or your partner, your neighbors or your friends, happy Mother's Day. And if you had breakfast in bed or otherwise celebrating the love of your children and your love for them, happy Mother's Day.